Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Pan Future Society podcast. I am your host, Sean. Today is Saturday, February 18th, 2017. And I've got an interview on the show today all about modern farming and what farming might look like in the near future. But first, let's get on with your news of the moment. Alright, the first news item this week comes from the Business Insider, and Bill Gates is advocating the taxation of robot workers, and says just because a worker isn't technically alive doesn't mean it can make money for nothing. And this is probably a really good point. I actually had not come across this idea yet in all of the things about robots and employment that I have looked at since I started doing this show. The Oxford report I have referenced several times, I will remind you, concludes that robots could displace up to 50% of jobs by 2033. And a 2015 McKinsey report states that today's technology could replace 45% of jobs right now. A lot of these jobs will be in, some of them will be in places that have grown recently since the sort of decline of manufacturing started, at least in the United States in the 70s and 80s. We got a lot more retail jobs, a lot more service sector jobs, that kind of thing. Those jobs are going away too. And as I've said many times, new technologies will bring some new jobs, but this is different. A lot of the jobs that robots and computers are going to replace in the next 50 years are not coming back. And this idea of taxation, I think, is an essential one. Robots will replace people initially because the owners of those companies will be able to make more money. In the long run, it is cheaper to have a robot than a human. That windfall of profit should not just all go to the stockholders. We have an enormous problem of income inequality right now, and it would only get worse if the use of robots in your workplace was basically free of charge in the social responsibility sense. Sure, they might be more expensive up front, but they don't take time off, they don't take vacations, they don't need health care, they need a little bit of maintenance now and then, and that's about it. Even the programming of robots, probably it won't be that long before the robots will make and program themselves, so even that job won't be around. I will link to this article as I always do, and you should check it out for yourself. It gives a rundown of some of the money numbers and things that they're talking about, and I think it's essential for the preservation of our society as we move toward the need to have a universal guaranteed income, which will be followed probably soon after by removing money as a thing we have altogether. This kind of law or enacted policy toward robots that replace humans is definitely going to be a necessity, something we should be taking a look at for sure. And now,
it came from outer space.
In the far future category of space things this week, Project Icarus. There's an organization. Their website is icarusinterstellar.org, and you should check it out. It's just got a lot of really cool things on it to read, and some speculative science and that sort of thing. But this project was launched September 30th, 2009 at the British Interplanetary Society in London. This project is also supported by the Tau Zero Foundation, and it is being managed by Icarus Interstellar, a non-profit foundation. The Icarus Project follows up on Project Daedalus, which ran from 1973 to 1978. Project Daedalus concluded that interstellar travel is feasible, and specifically Daedalus demonstrated that it is possible by using current or credible extrapolations of existing technology to launch an interstellar probe that could reach another solar system on time scales of a normal human lifetime. The new Project Icarus is meant to produce sets of technical reports which describe the engineering functionality and physics and other things of any of these potential interstellar missions. And from their website, the purpose of the project is fourfold: to motivate a new generation of scientists in designing space missions that can explore beyond our solar system, to generate greater interest in the real-term prospects for interstellar precursor missions that are based on credible science, to design a credible interstellar probe that is a concept design for potential mission in the coming centuries, so as to allow direct technology comparison with Daedalus and to provide an assessment of the maturity of fusion-based space propulsion for future precursor missions, and lastly, to allow a direct technology comparison with Daedalus and to provide an assessment of the maturity of fusion-based space propulsion for future precursor missions. So in a the short version, I guess, is Project Icarus is the engineering side of the theoretical physics of Project Daedalus from a number of years ago. And this might all sound like science fiction, but I remind you, in the long-term view of things, science fiction often becomes science fact, and it has to start somewhere. So keep an eye on the Icarus Interstellar website, icarisinterstellar.org, and see what people are dreaming up for the future. Maybe we'll see it in our lifetimes, maybe not. But it is important to push the boundaries of what is possible so that we may fulfill our full potential as human beings. And that is your news of the moment. On the main segment this week, I have an interview with the farm babe, Michelle Miller. She has become a source of great news about farming and has taken on the task of trying to educate the public about what farmers do, the tools and the other things that they actually use, because so many of us don't know. We are very disconnected from our food, and there's a lot of misinformation out of there. You can find her online at Iowa Farm Babe is the Facebook page, or at The Farm Babe on Twitter. Her website, farmbabe.org, is undergoing some work, so that should be back up in a week or so. Michelle is also a regular contributor to the website eggdaily.com. That's agdaily.com, not EGG. It's a news source for all things farming. And in the run-up to this interview, I started reading that website on a regular basis, and I was astounded by the technology and the science in there. Reading Egg Daily is every bit as scientifically engaged as reading Universe Today or Wired.com or something like that. It is there is very futuristic stuff. All the things that you think about what will be available for your home in the future or in your car in the future, farmers are probably doing it now. So go to eggdaily.com and read up on all that stuff on a regular basis. It's very cool. And as you listen to this interview, we covered a lot of topics: GMOs, technologies that are used on the farm, which will kind of blow your mind. And the overall takeaway from this interview I want you to get is when you're looking for information about a topic, go to the source. There is so much out there that people don't understand about food production, about farming, and people have become afraid of food, and that is a tragedy. And to really understand what farmers do and why they do it, you need to talk to a farmer. And don't listen to Vani Hari. Don't listen to David Avocado Wolf. Those people don't know anything. I usually don't get very angry on this show, and I always keep it clean. But people, there are real experts out there, and listen to them. And know where you're getting your information. All right, I'll say it again. Vani Hari and David Wolf don't know anything about farming. They don't know anything about science. They're just trying to take your money. If you want to know about physics, ask a scientist. If you want to know about medicine, ask a doctor. If you want to know about farming, ask a farmer. And so hopefully some of your questions about farming will be answered in this interview. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. I would like to welcome Michelle Miller, aka the Farm Babe, to the show. Greetings.
Hello.
So, I guess I will let you give a brief introduction to yourself. What's your elevator pitch for people who don't know you?
Well, I basically use social media as a way to bridge the gap between farmers and consumers. Mm-hmm. So I kind of grew up around agriculture and farming, grew up in Wisconsin, a 4-H kid, and kind of did all that stuff, and then moved to Los Angeles and Chicago and lived in the big city and was very disconnected to agriculture and farming. So I really understand the disconnect between the general public and the misinformation that surrounds our food today. And my boyfriend and I have been together over 4 years, and he is a 5th-generation farmer here in Iowa. And so when we first started dating, and I started learning about everything that they did on the farm, over time, I just said, you know what, I'm going to start a blog to educate consumers about what actually happens, because there's so much misinformation out there, you know, when it comes to GMOs and pesticides and hormones and antibiotics and all that good stuff. And when you talk to the farmers that actually use it, it's like we're real people, you know, and not a lot of people get to talk to us. So for me, it's a way to have people understand what we do and why, and to connect to those of us that actually produce your food, and help people not fear their food. Is basically my goal, is to help people understand what we do and to not fear their food, basically.
Yeah, that's a great thing to do. And the more I've been looking into it, the more I see that farmers have sort of run into the same walls that climate scientists or doctors run into, that there seems to be something about human nature that we want someone to blame for something, so it's easy to pick on someone who doesn't have a voice.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Everybody knows like a nurse or a teacher, but not everybody knows a scientist or a farmer, you know? So our voices need to get amplified, and people need to realize that we're real people, and to talk to farmers and scientists about farming and science, as easy as that.
Yeah. So if I read your bio right, you've kind of been on sort of the other side of the argument that farmers run into. So give us a view into that transition, sort of into and out of the, you know, anti-GMO crowd, or wherever you took that path.
Sure. So like a lot of other people out there, I mean, we all want what's best for our family or the soil or whatnot. And a lot of us have probably been exposed to different movies or celebrity figures or whatever else is out there. So I don't know have you ever seen that movie Food Inc.?
I never watched it. I've always skipped over it because I knew what it was going to be, so I wasn't going to go there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's pseudoscience, as you are well aware. I saw that movie back in 2009, and that pretty much kind of shaped the anti-GMO movement for me. It, just kind of hearing about all these things. When you live in Los Angeles and Chicago, you come across a lot of people that are very health conscious and everything. And with that comes celebrities and people that have never worked on a farm, but they have big voices, right? So I see these movies and I watch these animal cruelty videos and I hear these stories about how animals are pumped full of hormones and antibiotics and how GMOs are drenched with awful chemicals. And what I know now that I wish I would have known then is like that movie Food Inc. was funded by the organic industry. It was funded by the Organic Consumers Association, Stonyfield Organic. Like, remember how beautiful you never saw it, but, well, in the movie they make Stonyfield Organic, they make it sound like the most beautiful farm. And if you're not buying their products, you're buying poison and toxins and all this crazy stuff. And I think a lot of food companies today, like, they'll do anything to sell something. And fear is the new sex when it comes to selling something, right?
Yeah,
so
I've noticed that even when I go to the grocery store, it drives me nuts when I see, no GMOs on something that would never have GMOs. It's like non-GMO toilet paper. Like, no.
Exactly. So when I saw this movie, Food Inc., it said, that farmers are forced to grow GMOs and they're, they made it sound like these poor farmers are just under control by the evil Monsanto empire and all this stuff. And like, when consumers believe movies like this, like, you can't always blame them, right? Like, if they don't, if they haven't been exposed to the other side of it, you can't really blame them, right? So, like, for me, I saw this stuff and heard this stuff, and it made me only shop at Whole Foods. Like, I thought if I wasn't buying organic, I was eating all these terrible things.
Yeah.
And then I met my boyfriend, and when I first met him, I guess we've known each other almost 6 years now, but when we first met and started talking, and I came up to his farm, and he told me that he grew Monsanto GMOs, I was like, what? And then I started talking to him, and, like, he looked at me like I had three heads. Like, he goes, Monsanto does great things for farmers, like, and then I was just like, what? And so from there, it's like, now I want to take revenge on my wallet because I spent thousands of dollars, buying all these foods. I thought organic meant pesticide free. It doesn't. Right. I thought chickens were pumped full of hormones. They're not. There's no such thing as added hormones. So for me, it was just the more farmers I talked to and the more farmers I connected with and the more people I learned from, the more I was just like, oh my God, I'm so wrong. And a lot of consumers are just like me. They're misled and it's not right. And I don't think it's right for people to be lied to.
Yeah.
So I've literally done like this 180 of just being like, oh my God, we can't buy factory farm meats and GMOs, to being like, you know what? I've been to these so-called factory farms. They're run by great people and really smart people that really care. And they're the ones that can afford to hire the people that have a PhD in chicken or poultry science, or they have a PhD in dairy science, or, they have on staff 24/7 camera monitoring and veterinary, like the best relationships with their vets,
Yeah.
So I know what it feels like to be on both sides of the spectrum, and it feels really good to help people not fear their food and to bridge the gap, really, is my passion. So people don't make the same mistake I did at one point,
Yeah. That's it. Sounds a lot like, Mark Twain was famous for once saying something like, travel is a cure for a lot of ills, because you meet new people who aren't like you and you learn that they're human too. And it's, it's almost like, some people have a version of racism just because they've never lived around people who are different from them. People don't understand farmers because so few people are farmers that most people never meet a farmer anymore.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Talk about that.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I grew up in a semi-rural area, and we took field trips to farms where some of my classmates grew up. I don't even know if kids do that anymore at all.
Yeah, I think they do, but I think we need more of that, and I think that it needs to be more like keep it real, like educate them about the difficult topics early on,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like we grew up learning about like the DARE program, you know, like you take health class in 5th grade
Yeah.
and you learn about all this stuff, and they don't shy away from those topics when you're that age, you know? But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's okay to not shy away from other topics that are more important now, like vaccines and GMOs and climate change and all these things that are misconstrued because the media wants to sell a story. They don't necessarily care if it's true. So I think critical thinking is really important to teach kids nowadays.
So if you had like one myth about farmers that people you run into tend to believe, what would it be? What would you the number one thing about actually being a farmer do people not understand?
Oh geez, that's tough to kind of pin it down to just one.
Or several, you know, if you got
yeah.
Give me some of the big ones.
I think I think a lot of it is labels. They think that organic farming is so much better for animals and for the planet. And they think that if you're not organic, that if you're buying conventionally raised meats in a store, that you're buying it from people who don't care. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that that's true. Mm-hmm. When you actually connect with some of the bigger farmers, they care just as much as organic, if not more. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the animals are cared for better. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that it boils down to any type of label. I think it boils down to management. Mm-hmm. You could have a farm that raises 15,000 pigs better than someone who raises 5, mm-hmm. you know?
I mean, farmers of any kind are all people, and there's good people and bad people. And
exactly.
what kind of work they do doesn't tell you anything about whether they're good or bad, right?
Yeah. And I think people have this romanticized image that it should be, like Farmer Bob up the street with his pitchfork and his hay and this, you know, the straw sticking out of his mouth and his bib overalls. Yeah. And you know what? Like, no, we have a lot of technology.
Yeah. And his 60-year-old tractor that spews smoke into the sky. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh gosh, if only people could see all the technology that we have access to. And, you know, when you go into these huge so-called factory farms, I mean, they've got, these cows have like Fitbits, I call them, around their neck. They will track like 150 different data points of how many steps they take, how much they eat, how much milk they make, like how much milk they produce. I mean, there's so many different data points. They lay in sand. They have robots that milk them. They have automatic manure scrapers. They have climate controlled. They have vaccine programs. They have veterinarians. They eat better than people. Like, it's just
where
crazy.
Can I get that? Can I be a cow?
What'd you say?
Can I be a cow? That sounds pretty
good
to me.
I know. And they lead very good lives. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of people out there that want people to give up meat, mm-hmm. and they'll come up with these very scary videos which aren't mm-hmm. always truthful, or they'll recycle old footage. Mm-hmm. And
you find the one place that did it wrong compared to the thousands of places that do it right. Yeah.
Or, you know, I've heard stories that sometimes these activists will actually pay people to, you know, I'll give you $100 to hit this cow kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's how they get their catchy videos. And I've heard, and I mean, I don't know if this is 100% true, but this is just what I've heard from other people in the industry, is that they only get paid if they find abuse. So if they don't find abuse, sometimes they can make their own, or take an ordinary situation and make it look really scary.
Yeah.
You know, so like tail docking, dehorning, things like this. These are very important husbandry practices. But of course, you add a scary filter, a sad song, a dreary voice, and you can make anything look scary. Like, could you imagine if somebody did that to like a doctor, like performing surgery? Like, they could make them look like the world's most terrible person.
Yeah.
But it's all about the agenda. There's a lot of money behind it. Mm-hmm. But I think, you know, the other big thing would be like GMOs, of course, you know, that people think that, you know, Monsanto is this terrible company that's poisoning the planet. And if that was the case, we just wouldn't buy their products. I mean, people think that we're like, you know, there's so many myths. I mean, nobody forces us to grow anything specific. The government doesn't pay us to grow GMOs. We have plenty of companies to choose from. So when farmers grow GMOs, if 95% of farmers are growing GMOs, it's for a good reason. So if they were really falling flat on, their promises, we just wouldn't grow them anymore.
Yeah.
But the genetics continue to improve. Yields continue to improve. We're using less tillage than ever before. We're using less insecticides than ever before. We're using safer herbicides than ever before. So there's so many great things that are happening with GMOs and technology and farming in general.
Yeah.
And I want more people to learn about that and be excited and celebrate how we're able to produce more food on less land than ever before, know?
Yeah, and that's so necessary because with so few farmers and a growing population, it's not something we can just, it's not like making cars. You can't just manufacture more cars as easily as you can grow more food.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also noticed that you are also a contributor to the Ag Daily website. And I've spent the last few days reading a lot of articles there, and I am astounded by how much technology the modern farm uses. I mean, even what I thought I knew about farms before, like you mentioned, the sort of Fitbit for the cows, or there's tons of GPS and drones. And
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw self-driving tractors in use before we saw self-driving cars all over the place.
Self-driving tractors are already out, believe it or not.
Wow.
Did you hear about this or see this?
No.
Oh, this is really cool. Okay, so I was at the Farm Progress show this fall, and they are debuting the very first ever tractor that can drive itself. And I believe it's put out by Case IH. And you can control it all by an iPad.
Wow.
And it was really neat. If you go on my Facebook page on Farm Babe, you can see the pictures of it. If you just search my archives, you can find it. But it's crazy. Yeah. And I posted it to the farmers of my page just to see what they thought. And a lot of farmers were like, oh, screw that. Like, that's the joy of farming, is being in the field and driving your tractor, So there's a lot of people out there. And you have to take into consideration, like, holy crap, it's very expensive. Yeah. So unless you're farming tens of thousands of acres, I mean, it's like, who can afford it,
Yeah.
But it's it's coming. Yeah. It's coming for sure. And it's exciting. It's neat.
Yeah, I'd imagine that they will get less expensive, like all technology does. Is there anything on your farm that you use that's super high tech?
I got a drone for Christmas, but I haven't used it yet. I want to, though. I think for us, it's just really neat to see the equipment in the tractors and the combines, how everything is attached to the computer monitors, and how we can, like, it's kind of neat. Everything's attached. We have like a map, like a GPS and a map on the computer system inside. So it'll show us color-coded where we've planted and where we haven't. Okay. And then when you go to harvest, it'll show you everything's color-coded. So as you're harvesting, it'll show how many bushels you're getting per acre. It'll show you what the moisture content is, and it's all color-coded. So when you're done with a field, you'll have all these little patches of like green, red, and yellow. And the green means you had the best yields. Yellow is, average, and then red means, not the best of the yields in comparison, but I think that's really neat to see. And our planter, everything is attached to a sensor. So in the tractor, when you're planting, if for some reason a seed isn't dropping, it'll trigger a sensor that will notify us in the tractor cab, hey, row number 8, it'll beep, and it'll show us like a picture on the screen. And so then we just gotta jump out and go check it out and figure out why the seeds aren't dropping. And it's a pretty easy fix. Every so often you got something that you're yelling some swear words at the ground, but overall it's usually not too bad. But I think just being able to see everything real time with what's happening is cool. We're actually behind in the sense where our tractors don't have auto steer, which most tractors do nowadays. So ours are still a little bit old school, that we don't have GPS and we don't have auto steer. We have GPS but not auto steer. But we also, what was that?
There's technology out there that's like, if people imagine what's in a modern car, even like a Tesla that has assistive driving or whatever, you can get that in a tractor. Yeah.
We also use like a Climate Pro software, the Climate Corporation. It kind of allows us to track the weather and yields and inputs and all that stuff. And then, let's see, what was the other thing I was thinking of? I know I'm forgetting something, and I'm drawing a blank at the moment. The software. We're also going to try to get these sensors that can track how much feed is in our bins.
Mm-hmm.
It can track humidity, weather, security, whether or not you have like doors open,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. I'd really like to get some camera monitoring for the barns when we're when we're about ready to have lambs.
Okay.
That's kind of at the top of my wish list.
Mm-hmm.
But right now we just redid a barn. We put in like a brand new water system and automatic feeders. So I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff happening that when you compare the farm this year compared to what it was last year,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to cut down on our labor substantially. So that should help.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting.
That is very cool. That is very cool. Have you seen on your farm or any people that you talk to any climate change effects yet?
I don't think we have really. That's a good question, though. And we were just in Costa Rica a couple weeks ago, and they were actually talking about this, and they were asking us the same question. I don't think near us we really have, but in Costa Rica we went to this cloud forest, and they were talking about that too, about how climate change is affecting certain species of frogs and birds. And then they had asked us about that on the farm, and they were talking about it a little bit and how it's kind of affecting the coffee industry a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's affecting us as much as it is maybe in other parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's going to be 65 this weekend in Iowa, so maybe climate change is hitting us. I was just outside, like, grilling lamb chops in my shorts. It's almost 50 out, so I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I've been to Iowa in February at other times of the year, and 65 is not normal.
No, and we're due for lambs probably today or tomorrow. I mean, their gestation is 5 months, and they're 5 months, so they're going to drop lambs any minute. So that's why I wanted to get this interview with you sooner rather than later, because I said, if we have lambs, they are very time consuming.
Yeah.
So, but it's great weather. I mean, you don't want lambs being born in sub-zero temperatures if you can help it. So, so this is good weather for the ewes.
Great. Is there? I don't have any other specific questions. Is there anything else you would like to leave people with today?
Not so much. I mean, I think the pesticide issue is a pretty hot topic, and we own an agribusiness, and we do all different types of sales and service to all different types of farmers. Basically, if they need it, we can sell it or service it, with the exception of, like, equipment, right? We don't have an implement or anything. But, when pesticides are applied at fields, they're so minimally applied. Some products we use are literally applied at an ounce per acre. So an acre is about the size of a football field. So if you can imagine 1 ounce up to, say, 22 ounces of, say, Roundup, that's less than 2 pop cans. So I think when you put it into perspective, when you talk to consumers, sometimes they see these very scary images online that these fields are just drenched in chemical pesticides, but the dose always makes the poison. And when you put it into perspective of 2 pop cans on a football field, a lot of what you see in a picture is actually water that's coming out of a sprayer. So there's really not a lot of chemical application that actually happens. And it only happens a couple of days a year. So I think people should learn to not fear their food. Pesticides have been used for 4,000 years, and everybody knows you're supposed to wash your food. So I think that's really important. I think for people to talk to us and learn about what we do and why, and I guess to not be too worried about it, because we know what we're doing. Activists don't. They probably never stepped foot on a farm a day in their life, and they probably wrote some article and just read something online that was inaccurate and never actually talked to a farmer. So
yeah, right. Go to the source. Get medical
go to the
advice
source.
from your
I guess,
doctor. Talk to a farmer about farm and food issues, right?
yeah, I think that's my key message. I think is to just talk to farmers about farming.
Yeah. All right. Great. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for joining me today on this podcast. And what is your Facebook and Twitter page?
My Twitter handle, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, all that stuff is at the Farm Babe.
Okay.
And my Facebook is facebook.com/Iowa Farm Babe, or you can just search Farm Babe. You'll find me.
Yeah.
So those are my social media, and then I'm in the process of building a new website. So soon, hopefully within the next week or two, I will have thefarmbabe.com will be up and running. Mm-hmm. My web designer's working on that now, and then I got my column at Egg Daily, so there's all sorts of fun stuff happening.
Yeah, I especially would encourage all my listeners to go to the Egg Daily. It's stunning. I mean, I'm into all the futuristic things you can imagine, and I had no idea. Especially there's isn't there some sort of future machinery? What is it? There's a machine show going on right now, and there's like 2 or 3 articles a day with all this incredible stuff.
Yeah. My editor for Egg Daily is there as we speak, and I wish I was too. But that's the other thing is people can go to these shows. They're really cool. Yeah. The Farm Progress show that happens here in Iowa, I believe it's the biggest farm show in the U.S. And it's only like $15 to get in. I mean, it's really cheap. You talk about some of these conventions that are like hundreds of dollars. Yeah. This one's really cheap. And it's massive. And the technology is so neat. And like you actually get to interact with the scientists behind GMOs, or you actually get to interact with the engineers behind the equipment. And, it's crazy. Like even when you look at modern sprayers and stuff, I mean, farmers today are able to manage that down to the square inch. Yeah. We have so much control over. Precision ag is huge, and it is totally the future. I mean, we can produce 262% more food with 2% fewer inputs than we could in the 50s. Yeah. And we got to keep going with progress. And if we're going to meet the demands of food while, certain parts of farmland are shrinking, farmers make up less than 2% of the population. Yeah. And the population grows by 200,000 people every day. I mean, these are things that we have to continue to look towards and embrace and be excited about. I wholeheartedly agree. I think some people would like to go back to sort of a pre-industrial agrarian way of doing things, and there's just no way to do that with the population we have. I think the only way through is to go through and get over this hump that we're in right now. Yeah, farmers today are very tech savvy. You gotta shake the white picket fence and the bib overalls out of people's heads and say, we're pretty innovative nowadays, so it's cool.
Great. Well, thanks again for joining me, Michelle Miller, the Farm Babe.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right.
And there's your show. Thanks, as always, for joining me here on the Pan Future Podcast. Come check us out online at panfuture.org. Find the Farm Babe online on Facebook and Twitter, or come check out the show notes for this episode. I will put links to everything there. If you would like to support the show, there's donate links on the website. You can donate money for my music, or you can write reviews on iTunes or Stitcher or iHeartRadio or wherever you happen to find the show. Another big help, as always, is to share the show with people you think who might be interested, or maybe they need to hear it. That's all I got for you this week, so I will talk to you again in the future.